I thought my family photos were ordinary, until I noticed her. The same woman in every picture, unchanged for more than a century. She never looked at the camera, only at me. And when I finally asked who she was, my parents said the words I'll never forget. She isn't supposed to be real. That's when the footsteps started, and she whispered. I've waited for you. But the truth doesn't get quieter. It waits. It waits like she waits, still, patient, watching. There is a woman in every family photo we have ever taken. She has never aged. She has never spoken her name. She has never once looked at the camera, only at me. And I didn't notice her until I was well into adulthood. My name doesn't matter. Not for this. All you need to know is that I grew up in a loud, messy, ordinary family in a small town where everyone knew everybody else's dogs, birthdays, and breakups. Nothing strange ever happened there, not until I dug up that old shoebox from my mother's attic. I was home for the holidays, alone in the house while my parents visited the next-door neighbors. Snow fell outside in slow spirals. The lights flickered with that warm amber hum only old homes can produce. I just finished pouring myself a mug of hot chocolate when I noticed the attic door slightly open, as though inviting me. I don't remember opening it. I don't remember walking up the stairs. But I remember the cold. The kind of cold that feels like a warning. The attic smelled like dust, cedar, and forgotten things. Boxes were stacked in crooked towers, casting long shadows in the dim beam of the single hanging light bulb. And that's when I saw it, the shoebox. Plain. Tan. No label. Sitting in the center of the floor like it had been placed there for me. I knelt, the wooden planks groaning under my weight. When I lifted the lid, I didn't find jewelry or childhood drawings or love letters. I found photographs. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. All of them black and white, crisp around the edges despite their age. The first photo I picked up was from when I was a child, my 5th birthday party. I remember that day. The cake. The rain. The way my mom kept fussing with my collar. Everyone was there, except the woman. But there she was. Standing beside the tree behind us. Pale dress. Dark hair pinned back. Hands clasped in front of her. Not smiling. Not posing. Looking directly at my younger self. I furrowed my brow, confused. It had to be a neighbor or a distant cousin, someone I'd forgotten. I set the photo aside and picked up another, my parents' wedding portrait. A beautiful shot of the two of them under that old gazebo, and there she was again. Same face. Same dress. Same posture. But the wedding was decades before I was born. My breath caught in my throat. One by one, I sifted through the photos. Every generation of my family, my grandparents, great-grandparents, even a sepia-toned portrait from what must have been over a century ago. And always, always the woman. She never changed. Not one line on her face. Not one strand of hair out of place. She didn't belong to any era, because she belonged to them all. At first, I tried to rationalize it. A family friend? A hired housekeeper? A coincidence? But deep down, even then, I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a trick of memory. This was deliberate. She had been watching my family for generations. And now, she was watching me. I would have stared at those photos longer, but something cold brushed the back of my neck. Not air. Not wind. Something with weight. Presence. Intention. I turned around slowly. The attic was empty. But the light overhead flickered, then dimmed, as though acknowledging that I had finally seen the truth. That was the night everything began. If only I'd left the box closed. If only I'd never looked at those photos. If only I'd never realized she was real. But it was already too late. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake in my childhood bedroom, listening to the house settle. Those familiar creaks and groans that had always comforted me now felt like footsteps, whispers, reminders that I wasn't alone. Every so often, the wind would push against the window, and I'd tense, expecting to see her standing outside in the snow. Watching. Morning didn't feel like morning, it felt like a thin layer of safety draped over something monstrous beneath. My mother made breakfast, humming like nothing was wrong, while my father read the newspaper at the table. I kept glancing at them, wondering how they could live their whole lives with her in the photos and never notice. Or maybe, they did notice. Maybe they just learned not to ask questions. The shoebox sat on the kitchen counter where I'd left it, the lid closed but humming with the weight of truth. I couldn't take my eyes off it. My mother eventually followed my gaze and frowned. "Where did you find that?" she asked. "The attic," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. Her expression tightened, like a thread pulled too far and threatening to snap. She dried her hands on a dish towel and walked over to the box, resting her fingers on the lid but not opening it. "You weren't meant to see these," she whispered. That sentence felt like a key turning in a lock I hadn't realized existed. "What do you mean? Who is she?" My mother froze. Truly froze. I could see the pulse in her neck flutter like a trapped moth. "Who told you there was a she?" she asked. "I saw her," I said. "In every photo." My father folded the newspaper slowly, almost ceremoniously, and set it down. When he lifted his eyes to me, there was something ancient behind them, fear baked into resignation. He said, "She's not supposed to be real." The room seemed to tilt. "What does that mean?" I asked. But instead of answering, my parents exchanged a look, one of those wordless conversations married couples have, except this one was thick with dread. My father rose from his chair and motioned for me to follow him. We went into the living room, where the old family portrait, our proud generational display, hung above the mantel. He pointed to the oldest one at the top, a sepia depiction of my great-great-grandparents. "There," he said quietly. And yes, she was there. Slightly blurred this time, as if whoever took the photo tried to catch her before she moved. "I thought she was a mistake," my father said. "A shadow. A stranger who wandered into the shot." But then I noticed her again, and again. My mother joined us, her voice trembling. "She's been with our family as long as we have records. Longer, maybe. We stopped asking about her because," she swallowed hard. "Because the people who tried to learn more, didn't stay themselves." I stared at them. At the photos. At the woman. "Why hasn't anyone warned me?" I asked. My mother closed her eyes. "Because she chooses who sees her." The words hit me like ice water. "She chooses?" My father's jaw clenched. "We hoped she wouldn't choose you." Silence swallowed the room. Then, a soft knock came from upstairs. Not the front door. Not the back door, upstairs. In my old room. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father took a step backward. He wasn't the kind of man who scared easily, but I saw terror hollow him out in real time. I turned toward the staircase. Each step groaned as though something heavy had shifted just beyond sight. "She's here," my mother whispered. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to move. But something, curiosity, fear, inevitability, pulled me toward the stairs. I climbed them one by one, my blood pounding in my ears. At the top, my bedroom door was slightly ajar. I could see the edge of my childhood bed, the familiar posters on the wall. Everything looked just as I'd left it. Except for one thing. A photograph lay on the carpet just inside the room. A single black and white print, face down. Hands shaking, I picked it up. It was a picture of me, taken that morning, standing in the kitchen with the shoebox. Behind me, just inches behind my left shoulder, stood the woman. Staring. Not at me in the photograph. At me holding the photograph. Her expression was different this time. Not neutral. Not patient. But almost eager. I staggered backward, dropping the photo. It fluttered to the ground like a dying bird. As soon as it landed, the lights flickered. The house groaned again. Then came the footsteps. Slow. Measured. Approaching from the end of the hallway. I froze. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. And then I heard her voice, for the first time. A whisper. Soft as dust. Sharp as ice. I've waited for you. The hallway lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Darkness swallowed everything, thick, almost deliberate, as if the shadows themselves had weight. For a moment, I wasn't sure where I stood. My childhood hallway felt unfamiliar, stretched by fear into something longer, colder, wrong. But the footsteps continued. Soft. Unhurried. Certain. I pressed my back against the wall, one hand sliding along the peeling wallpaper until I found the doorway to the bathroom. I slipped inside, shut the door, and clicked the lock. The sound felt pathetically small in the suffocating silence. My breath trembled. I pressed an ear to the door. Footsteps paused directly outside. I felt her presence, not physical, but like a memory you try to forget pressing against your spine. A soft scrape against the door. Fingertips? A nail? The faintest drag of something that didn't belong in the world of the living. She whispered again. The same voice as before, ancient and gentle, but threaded with hunger. You finally see me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I forced my voice out in a choked whisper. What do you want? A pause. Then, your family owed me. They forgot. You remembered. A wave of nausea washed over me. The shoebox. The photos. The generations. Somehow, some way, she was tied to us. Bound to us. But why me? Why now? I sank to the cold tile floor, gripping the sink to steady myself. I didn't ask for this, I whispered. You opened the box, she murmured. There was no accusation in her tone. Only inevitability. The footsteps retreated slowly, fading down the hallway. I waited, seconds, minutes, an eternity, before unlocking the door and stepping into the dim corridor again. The lights flickered back to life. My parents stood at the far end of the hall, faces pale, eyes hollow with dread. They didn't need to ask what had happened. They already knew. She contacted you, my mother whispered. She spoke to me, I said, voice cracking. My father nodded grimly. Then she's chosen you. It doesn't end until you finish it. Finish what? I demanded. What does she want? My parents exchanged another wordless look, the kind that carried decades of fear. My mother stepped forward, reaching for my hand. Our family made a promise long ago. A bargain. She watches us. Protects us. Guides us. But every few generations, she chooses someone to acknowledge her. To keep the memory alive. To maintain the bond. And if I don't? I asked. She'll take more than memory, my father said, voice barely above a whisper. I staggered backward. No. No. I'm not agreeing to that. I'm not repeating some ancient deal with a ghost. She's not a ghost, my mother said. Not exactly. She's older than that. What is she? My mother exhaled shakily. A guardian, according to our ancestors. A curse, according to everyone else. I pressed a hand to my forehead, feeling the weight of centuries bearing down on me. My life had cracked open like an egg, spilling secrets my family had carried in silence. I needed air. I bolted down the stairs, stumbled through the living room, and pushed out into the snow-covered yard. The cold slapped my face, grounding me. My breath came in fast clouds. I looked back at the house, expecting to see her in the window, watching. But the glass was empty. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd escaped her gaze. Then I noticed something sticking up from the snow near the old oak tree. A piece of paper. No, photographic paper. I crouched, brushed away the frost, and lifted it. Another photo. This time, it wasn't old. It was printed on fresh, modern glossy paper. A picture from mere moments earlier. Me. Standing outside in the snow. Looking at the house. And behind me, no longer distant, no longer blurred. The woman stood only inches away, her hand reaching toward my shoulder. As I stared at it, the air changed. The wind stopped. The world stilled. And a shadow fell over the snow beside mine. I didn't need to turn to know it belonged to her. I felt her breath against my ear, cold, ancient, patient. "You are the memory now," she whispered. Everything went white. But I didn't collapse. I didn't scream. I simply understood. The cold wasn't cold. The fear wasn't fear. Her presence wasn't a threat. It was inheritance. A weight handed down from generation to generation, waiting for the one person who would finally accept it. And I did. When I opened my eyes, the woman was gone. The photo was gone. Even the shoebox, gone. But the truth remained. I see her now. Everywhere. In crowds. In reflections. In the corner of my eye. Not haunting. Watching. Guarding. Waiting. I tell this story not as a warning, but as a record. A reminder. Because one day, maybe sooner than you expect, you'll take a photo with your family. You'll look closely. And you might see her too. And if you do, it means she has chosen you next.